Hey, did you know that there are three different types of stress that our children can experience? And one of those types could severely affect the development of their brain. But the good news is, as adults, we can help them through this type of stress so it will not leave a long term effect on them. So that's what we want to talk about today in this video. So let's talk about it. But before we do, if you hear anything in this video you think somebody need to hear it, share it with them. Even if it's just one person, share it with them. Like it, tag, comment at the bottom, and let's have a conversation about this stress that our children can experience in their life. So, what are these three different types of stress that our children can experience? But first, we must understand that stress is a natural part of our children's life, of our lives, everybody's life. Everybody has stress. We need stress to help us through fear. You see, stress is just a response of fear. And stress helps us to get through fear because it's stress when our brain detects fear, it releases stress hormones, which are cortisol and adrenaline that pumps through our bodies and help us to deal with whatever type of fear that we're going through. So we need stress. Stress is natural. But the thing is, there's different types of stress that can really harm our children. And we want to talk about that today. But before we get there, there are some first type of stress that I want to talk about is positive stress. This is a good type of stress. We need this type of stress. This is a type of stress that when our children feel it, it pumps out a moderate case of just a little bit of stress hormone to help them deal with this fear because it's not a big fear. Maybe our children have been studying for a test and then the test comes and just before they start taking the test, they have a little fear. Well, their bodies detect this, pumps out a little cortisol, a little adrenaline, a little stressful fear, a little stress to help them through the test. Or maybe a ball game. And just before the game starts, they get a little fear. And this stress response helps them through that fear to play the game. This is a good type of stress. This fear actually is good for the body because it teaches the body how to deal with fear. So we need this type of fear. Our children need to experience this type of fear. The second type of fear is tolerable stress. The second type of stress is tolerable stress. This is when our children have experienced some type of fear or something that happens in their life that is going to take longer for them to get over than just taking the test or just going through the game. Maybe a grandparent died or something happened in their life and now it's going to take a while for them to get over it. So their body now detects this tolerable stress and puts out more of the stress hormones. This type of stress needs an adult to help them through it, which is called a buffer. This type of stress needs a buffer or an adult to help them through whatever's going on in their life, to help them through the death of their grandparent or a friend or what have you. Help them through some type of trauma that has happened in their life. They can't get over it themselves, so they need a buffer in their life to help them through that type of stress so their body can eventually calm down so that body can stop pumping the stress hormones through their bodies. But the last type of stress, the third type of stress is called toxic stress. This is a type of stress when our children experience trauma, and there is no buffer in their life. There's not an adult in their life. And this doesn't just happen one time, but it continues to happen. And there's nobody there to help them through this type of stress. When a child is being abused at home and there's nobody there to help them. When they're being bullied at school every day and there's nobody there to help them, then this type of stress continuously sends the stress hormones through their body, and it runs rapidly through their body, and it begins to affect the development of their brain, which could lead to long-term effects even as into adulthood if they're not helped, and if they're not a buffer that comes along and help them calm their body and go back into a calm state. This type of stress and all the stress hormones that continue to run rapid in their bodies will affect the development of their brain. It will even affect their bodies. And as an adult, long-term effects, just some of the long-term effects from this type of stress, from this toxic stress, is heart disease, alcoholism, memory and learning difficulties, anxieties, depression, cancer, and that's just to name a few. So this type of stress is so important. If you see anybody, if we see a child and we see that there's something going on in their life, somebody needs to step in and be a buffer for this child, for these children. That's why it's so important for people, especially our teachers, to understand, to be trained, to be able to understand and see these signals of a child that's being traumatized, so they can be that buffer, so they can step into that child life, so they can get that child some help, because they see these children every day. And our teachers have to deal with this. They have to deal with the aggression that comes out. They have to deal with the anger that comes out at school. And if they don't know what's going on, they see them as a class disruption. And they cannot become that buffer that they need, or they cannot get the help to that child that they need because they don't understand what's going on. So it's so important. It's so important that we all understand ACEs and get educated in ACEs and understand the signals of a child that's being traumatized in some type of way, and understand that somebody has to step into this child's life and become a buffer. Because if just one person steps into this child's life and becomes a buffer, and that child can feel safe enough around them, so they can start calming down, you could be the person that changes that child's life for a lifetime. Or it's just somebody that can help them get to some help. So if you see any child today and you know they're being traumatized, or you think there's something going on, don't turn your back on them and say there's somebody else. Let somebody else do it. It's all of our responsibility. That's all I have for you today. And I will see you next time where we talk about everything ACEs. See you in the next video.